Good morning, everyone, and very nice to welcome you on the Women in PE Summit. And we are lucky because this time this is a summit, so we have a lot of time to speak and to share with all our panelists. So we'll start with a panelist from a French perspective. Then we'll have the chance to have Elisabeth Moreno sharing her views, and then we'll end with a perspective from international and other European countries. So just before we start, I just want to thank all the men who are in the room. But thank you for joining, because it's not only a woman issue, it's definitely an issue for all the PE industry. So, and we're going to share, and I promise that next time you will have more diversity on the panelists. So Sophie Norman is a partner at Ciparex. And then we have Laure Lam-Coutard, partner at Elion Partner, part of Edmond Rothschild PE. And Sophie Moilade, from Director of Investment at Bridgepoint, and Eva Oel, Investment Director at LBO France. So it's nice to have you on this panel. And just we start with this discussion, I just want to remind some key figures that are very interesting to start this panel. So these are some key figures on diversity in private equity in Europe. 20% of investment professionals in PE across Europe are women. At the junior level, it's a bit better. 34% of investment professionals are women, and it's more than 40% in France, so not that bad. At the senior level, as you would expect, we are not so good anymore, so the figures fall to 10% in Europe, 15% in France. And the last one, but very interesting figures, and I just couldn't believe it when I see that in the level 20 report, you have almost 40% of European PE firms that are still have all main investment teams, 40%. It's in France, it's below 20%. So maybe we can start with having some view on these figures. So France seems to fare definitely not so bad compared to the other European countries. So in your views, how do you explain that? Sophie, would you have some?
Yes, thank you, Emily. Yeah, for sure, France is a good student, and maybe we can talk about the Copé-Zimmermann law. So about 10 years ago, France was a pioneer, but in the PE industry, France Invest gave a big boost with the charter promoting gender diversity. So in 2020, it was at IPEM, I remember. And a lot of GPs, actually more than 80% of GP based in France, so it means more than 300 GPs, signed this charter, and the commitments of the charter are quite strong. So it's the main one are that in 2030, so it's not tomorrow, but it's the day after tomorrow, the GP should have 40% of women in their investment team and 25% in their investment committee. So the challenges are quite high, and the objectives are there, and the road is still long to reach these objectives. But so far, we made a very good start, let's say, on the France level. And France Invest and the Talent and Diversity Commission made a lot of actions to enhance the situation. For example, with the help of Level 20, we have a lot of outreach in schools and universities all over France, and also mentoring programs with a lot of success. Then we have also with Schema, the business school, a specific program for women in PE. And actually, the next promotion is in April, so it's open for newcomers. It's a little attention to that. We have also role models. We have a toolbox on the France Invest website. We have the annual Grand Prix evening highlighting role models. So a lot of different actions, numerous actions to go ahead because the road is still very long.
And Sophie, I think that you have some experience to share on this.
Yeah, and I agree with Sophie that we can take pride that France is a good student around those issues. I think France Invest, Level 20, have done a tremendous job. There's been, as Sophie was saying, numerous initiatives. That being said, yeah, the road is still long because anyone who's still involved in recruitment of interns or associates, senior associates would know that you get 5 CVs of men for 1 CV of women, and there's no rational explanation for that. You can't really, it's not where, there's no glass ceiling at the level of interns. It means that the industry is not yet very attractive. Women don't feel entitled to, just apply to our jobs. And so there's still a lot of job to do on a long road ahead of us.
That's quite interesting. But in addition to all this initiative from France Invest and the legal environment, do you think that there is any local and cultural and social issues in France that can help to promote diversity? Or in your firm? Eva, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, maybe. Hello. Thank you, everyone. One idea is to promote the girls, to promote women, just try to search for or look for different profiles. I am from LBO France, and I'm not a private equity baby born, I would say. Still, I've performed 12 years of in industry before and advice also. And then I came to the private equity industry. And that was an opportunity that was given to me by...
And it's pretty rare, actually, to have... and that's probably one of the key that we will discuss after that, is just to have profile coming from other environments than just being baby PE, having the usual path from a banking firm to M&A firm and then to private equity.
Yes, you're right. At LBO France, we created 12 years ago also an operating team with different profiles. They are coming from industry. And with the investment team, we are all working together. And it's something that is very rich because, yes, it's a diversity of profiles and we are all complementary. So I do promote that. Please do consider it with an open-mindedness. Yeah.
Laure?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it's working. I think another thing, apart from all the mentoring and the work that France Invest and Level 20 are doing in schools to push girls into applying, I think there's also a change coming with the younger generations, and we see that with boys as well. They want more flexibility and they expect diversity. Even the boys. We recently hired an associate who had an impeccable pedigree, a boy, and just before signing, he said, "Guys, I just need to, I need to be home at 6:30 to pick up my son from the creche because my wife is an intern in the hospital. Blah blah blah. Is that okay? And I can work from home afterwards. That's not a problem." And I was thinking, when I was his age, I would never have asked for something like this. And of course we said yes. And working from home and all the flexibility from télétravail and all that has changed a lot of things as well.
And paternity leave.
Paternity leave. Boys today, young fathers take it, whereas I think older men never used to take it. So I think there's a generational change that's going to help as well from everyone and not just women who expect the workplace to be more flexible and to accommodate, different things. So I'm pretty hopeful that the push is going to come from really everyone rather than just women on the women-only panel.
Having in mind for all the GP in the room that they will have to reach by approximately 7 years all the targets that France Invest have put in the chart. Are there any initiatives, any best practices that you have put in place in your own firm or experience in previous firm to retain and promote women in your industry? So what are the keys to keep them?
Everybody's looking at me. So okay, let's start. Let's say I have two main axes in mind. The first one is that change has to be really motivated by the top management, and when you have women partners or women at the top of a PE firm, usually it's more easy, let's say. I shall confess that it's less common to have still nowadays men deeply, sincerely convinced by the subject. I hope it's going to change, but so far I think it's still the case. And the second main point is the minimum size, because in a team of 10 professionals, let's say, when you have only one woman, she still feels isolated. But if you reach 30% of women in a team, usually they feel more at ease and they are more eager to stay and to invest. And maybe because I have the mic and I keep it, one of the challenges is to recruit, of course, but to retain. Because a recent survey just said that to the question, do you project yourself in the long term in the PE industry, to junior people, while the men answered at more than 80% yes, junior women only answer at 50% yes. So it means that young women don't project themselves in the long term in PE. So we still have to be very.
And that's a lot of talents away,
yes.
going away to other firms. Yeah. So
Thank
Eva, you are.
Yeah, I can testify for both of these points. In fact, at Elbow France, with Stéphanie Cassiola has been appointed CEO last year, and I can say that she's the complement of our founder, and she brings something new, and it's easier for us, definitely. And the second aspect is that we've hired a young girl last year also in our investment team. So I'm no more the only one in my team, and it's definitely different. So yes, just do it, because it's a pleasure for you, man. Huh? It's a pleasure for us because we feel better. It's just that. So just do it together. I want to say that. It's a good thing too.
Yeah, I would add just on what you're saying that it's very difficult to recruit women in this industry right now. We're looking for junior talent. Senior talent is even harder. But when you manage to hire someone, the key is trying to keep them. And that's also very difficult because everybody's looking for women. So, just anything, don't just assume because you tick your box by hiring someone that they're going to stay and it's going to go well. A career lasts a long time, and it's complicated.
Yeah, and so I think we collectively agreed that the role of role models is key for retention. So I was lucky enough that when I started in this industry, I've always been working with inspiring women. And I don't think I measured the chance that I had. But if you're starting from a blank piece of paper, out of the blue, having senior women in your team is not something that's very easy. That being said, I think one advantage that we have in our industry is that we have a very broad ecosystem within which there are a lot of senior women. So, for example, if you think of the pool of our advisors, of councils, for example, consultants, bankers, etc., there are a lot of inspiring women. If you think of our portfolio companies, management teams, our portfolio companies, board members as well, there's a lot of profiles of inspiring women. And if you have a pool of young talents and you want to make sure that you retain them, but you don't have any senior female figure within your team, make sure they can interact with those figures every day, because they can project themselves into a leadership position because they would interact with female leaders every day.
Yeah, and make sure that they are aware of the Level 20 initiatives, for instance, the mentoring, and be sure of being involved in France Invest, the Talent et Diversité Commission. There are like 80 women involved, and men as well.
And men.
Exactly, it's co-managed by Frédéric Pescatori. So they have to be aware that there are these kind of initiatives and that they can benefit from sharing their experience with other women. And Sophie, you said something interesting about the fact of sharing your view with manager of companies, because you cannot, promote diversity in your portfolio companies if you are not diverse yourself, or there is a kind of problem. So, have you experienced this kind of discussion with your portfolio companies? CEO, would that help, for instance, at LBO France to have many women in the team?
Yeah, of course, it's difficult to say to the CEO, hey, look at your diversity ratio. So bad, but okay, so if you've got one woman at least in the team, it makes it different. So yes, it's easier.
Helps promote the...
And one thing also, when I was younger, I think, okay, I don't want that we count women and say, okay, how many are we? Okay, we should be 20%, because I thought at the beginning that it would be, not about competencies and talent if we count, and if we want 2 girls, well, maybe she will be less talented than 2 boys because you want that. But in fact, I think it's false. It's a full track. We are all financial people. We love to count, and we know that we want. If we want to reach something, we have to define a target. So just do it also for that. That's just business sense, and just apply it to that subject, because we are all convinced that when we are balanced in our team, it's just a virtue. We are better. Everyone is better with diversity. I think so.
On that topic as well, I think typically what we experience is that our portfolio companies are ahead of us. So actually, getting their advice as well on how they manage diversity within their own teams is something that can be very valuable for the firm.
Yes, you're true, because they are submitted to the Copé Zimmermann, whether most of the GP get away from this, not being Société par Action. So yes, definitely. Before we give the floor to Elisabeth Moreno, are there any key takeaways that you want to share, including, for instance, it's the fact that it's more complicated, as we say, that to retain and to promote women when we're a small team? I heard a lot of GP saying, okay, I just want to have women, but they're not coming because we don't have any yet. And it's very hard to fight against big PE firm because they have a lot of initiative inside to be able to attract them. So is it more difficult in smaller teams, in your views?
Definitely, yes. I'm sorry, but yes, it's quite unfair because, as we said, thanks or due to the France Invest Charter, many headhunters could testify that everybody is looking for women, and when you are a small GP, it's not easy to retain and to compete with a bigger GP with higher salaries. So it's true, it's quite difficult.
And internal programs as well,
yes,
about mentoring, etc.
Yes, but I also believe, maybe I'm a bit too, let's say, a lot of ideas, but I also believe that women and men, and particularly young people nowadays, they are not only motivated with money. So It's a question of team spirit. It's a question of perspective. It's a lot of things that retain men and women in their teams. So yes, times are quite hard for small teams, but I'm sure that there is many levers to put in place to keep them.
I think smaller teams, I mean, I'm part of a smaller team within a big franchise, really should look to their culture and how they can use that, especially during the interview process. It's really a strength. I mean, when you're discovering a team that's close-knit and that's relatively small, a lot of people like that as well. And it's an opportunity to spend a lot of time with the candidate and to get to know them on a very much more personal level. And I think, like you said, I mean, the younger generation, this is something that's very important for them. And they don't really believe all the big firm bullshit. But they do interact on a very personal level. And if you're good at onboarding them on your culture and who you are as a team and how it works and why you want to hire them and how it's gonna work and who your people are, I think that's also a strength from small teams that people should really leverage.
Yes, with exactly, with flexibility as well, as you said,
flexibility and
also everything is
just getting to know people on a personal level. I think that's for the younger generation. That's also very important, especially in our industry, where girls, I think, hear a lot of horror stories, or have in the past.
And Sophie, being from a big firm, you want to react?
Yeah, sure. No, being part of a big firm that's not bullshitting about diversity initiatives, I can say it's hard as well. I was talking about the ratio of CVs that we receive. For me, it's hard to explain why young women are not attracted to this industry. So, we need to continue to push attracting more talent, and that's where I think the Level 20 initiatives are great, because you talk to young women, but also young men, actually. It's just like attracting a bigger pool of talent. You speak to them at university, where they're broadening as well the number of universities that they're talking to have more diverse education, etc., etc. So I think there's a big effort to do on that, and to make sure just young talents are aware of this industry and want to apply.
Just one question that I have hearing you about when you go to school, HEC, etc., to promote your industry, are this men and women coming just as a peer, going to the school, just showing that men are on board as well, or is it just women?
So I've done it recently at my school. There were quite a lot of attendees, so I think 100. And what was funny, I think it was overall balanced gender-wise, but all the questions, they were asked by men. None of the women asked the question. They didn't want to speak. So you can see, there's still a lot of cultural differences.
Also comes from a psychological bias, I think so, because, we are very rational. We want to classify, categorize, because it's simpler to think like this. So you will see her and say, okay, is she serious or is she funny? Is she committed or
both.
Uncommitted? Is she, in fact, we are both. You're right, we can be both. And we should be women in private equity. We can be women uninterested by money. Everything is possible.
Yes, it's compensation time, so think of it.
we have all, I think, to pay attention to that, because it's a bias, a psychological bias, in fact.
So thank you very much for your views and sharing your views on that panel, which was much more French focused, and then we'll have the international perspectives that will be interesting to share the view and see what differences. But in the meantime, we'll have the pleasure to have Elisabeth Moreno sharing her views.
Sure. I mean, you're not asking the room for questions?
We're waiting for you, intervention.
Yes, if we have time.
So
yes.
we have 5 minutes, I understand, from Elisabeth. Do you have any question in the room for this panel? And I see, and a question from a woman. That's good.
Thank you. First of all, super interesting panel. Thank you for all the numbers and your experiences. I have two questions I'm going to try to compile into one. First of all, do any of you have any experiences running diversity trainings within your organizations, and how have you seen those go down, reactions to it, and have you seen improvements? And the other one is, I thought the question about retention was really interesting, and have you done any initiatives to improve retention, and what do you think are the reasons that it's so much lower for women than for men?
So Sophie, you want to ask the question?
So actually, we are working on this subject of retention. So we have not yet a toolbox or magical recipes, and but yeah, for sure, all the criteria are to be taken into account. Of course, perspective, but also yes, team spirit. And it's not because we are women that we are only one type of women. Some women are quite aggressive and they like to be like that. Others are more, yeah, let's say, talented with soft skills. So it's difficult to make global rules. And it's dangerous to make global rules, actually. But the more I'm convinced that the more you have diverse in the global sense, diverse profiles, the more everybody feel at ease. The more you have only the same profile coming from the same business school, living in the same neighborhoods, and then you have only one way of thinking, and all the other people, men, women, but also men, coming from different social level, they won't feel at ease in the company. So it's what we have to look at, and actually the Talent and Diversity Commission is working on that. It's to work also on the diversity level in a global sense, and it's very linked to the young generation, because I'm convinced that we have globally in the PE industry to change our mind, to change our way of working, because otherwise we'll have a problem to recruit and to attract young generation, because they are not with the same software inside, they are not seeking the same values. And so it's a deep change, and we have to do it softly.
I think one of the specificities of our industry is that we're not really an industry where people have careers that are managed like in a large corporate, right? A lot of teams are still relatively small when you compare it to the rest of the economy. And we tend to have people who are considered self-starters, so who manage themselves and manage their workload, and you have to go get deals, get aggressive, and so we don't have this culture of managing people's careers and career paths. And I think it's probably a bit of a mindset change that we need for us to be able to retain women, especially.
So to your question around trainings, we've had a number of those, and I feel the ones that are the most impactful are usually unconscious bias trainings, because no one really wakes up in the morning and says like, hey, I'm going to discriminate someone today. So you do it unconsciously. And so making you aware of your own biases usually is something that really changes your own attitude. So I think it's been really powerful. Another initiative that we put in place at Bridgepoint, but it's also something that requires a critical size, is to install mutual mentorship. So with top leaders of the firm and mid-level female investment professionals. And it's usually you see mentorship as, top to bottom. And here it's really a two-way street. Which allows young women to get very valuable advice from leaders of the firm, but at the same time they can bring additional perspective to the table, and they can share also, what their aspirations are or what their views on a deal are, like whatever it is, but they can, add some perspective to how the leaders are thinking. So this is proven as well very very powerful.
Are there any other questions? Yes?
Thank you very much. Marie-Capucine Lemaitre from Ring Capital. I think all those conversations are really helpful, but the second part of our role is to have an impact on our portfolio companies, because as size is concerned, as far as size is concerned, it's much, well, the impact we can have is much bigger. How do you include that? I think the fact that we have more women in the industry should have an impact on the industry the company we invest in. How do you put that within your diversity and your the mixity initiatives? We just launched, and we are very, very small management company, but a program, a leadership program for women within our portfolio company. We talk about 20 women, so it's for now very, very small scale, but I think it's something we can really bring to the industry to bring this additionality on gender equality. What do you think of that?
Do you want to start? Maybe in my team at CIPAREX, we are quite helped with the LP on this subject, because and we have to confess that all these trends at the very beginning came from the LPs, and so it's a big thank you. And in particular, to answer your question, we are committed in my team to fulfill ESG criteria, and in this criteria we have the gender equality objective, and to start with at the board level. So if we don't manage to put at least one woman or more in the boards, we are losing points, and this point, it's losing points of carried interest. So we are talking about money, our money. So it's very it's a very powerful way to convince ourselves to put this in place. Of course, as a woman, it's not a question for me, but for my men's colleague, I confess that it's quite powerful at the end of the day.
That's the same for us. We did it through the ESG review, and it's at the board level. So that's the way to do it.
But
and
maybe
thanks to our LPs, exactly the same
pressure, a nice pressure. And if I can just add a word, so it's for at this stage it's only at the board level, but I hope that with the Rixin law, then it's going to be a bigger step, and it's going to be at the C level, at the executive board of director, because it's another step, and I really hope that we will move toward this objective.
Similar for us, we have a quantitative approach of representative at the board and also at the ExCom. But we also have a more soft approach where we try to entertain as well the community of female leaders of our portfolio. We organize dinners so they can exchange around, their own experience being under LBO, etc. And it's been quite successful as well.
Oh, unless we have other questions in the room, no question from a man? No?
Maybe the last word is that we need men on this subject. So we are quite happy that we have men at the Talent and Diversity Commission, and please join us, because it's not a women flight, it's not a women club, it's a society subject, society issue. So men are more than welcome. We need them.
So we can finish that panel with us saying, men are more than welcome, so it's a kind of way to reverse the invitation. So thank you very much for sharing your views on this panel. And now please welcome Elisabeth Moreno for the next step.